I'm Daniel Harper, a structural engineer with a knack for seeing how things hold together or fall apart. For 15 years, I've built my life with Claire, my wife, in a quiet suburb of Portland. Our home is a two-story Craftsman, the kind with creaky hardwood floors and a porch swing that sways in the evening breeze. We've got 2 kids, Ethan and Lily, who fill the house with laughter and the occasional slammed door. From the outside, we're the picture of stability. Claire with her art gallery job, me with my blueprints, and the kids with their soccer games and piano lessons. But structures, even the strongest ones, can hide cracks you don't see until they're too deep to fix. Started with a feeling, not a fact. A shift in the air, like the faint tremor before a bridge buckles. Claire had always been vibrant, her auburn hair catching the light as she moved through rooms, her laugh a melody that could pull me out of any bad day. But over the past year, she'd grown distant. Her eyes, once warm and open, started drifting past me, like she was looking for something, or someone, beyond our life. She'd linger at the gallery late, claiming client dinners or last-minute installations. Her phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now glued to her hand, its screen tilted just out of my view. I'm not a suspicious man by nature, but I'm trained to notice when the load-bearing walls of a structure start to shift. The first clue came in late September, during one of those crisp Pacific Northwest evenings where the air smells of pine and damp earth. Claire had said she'd be at a gallery event downtown, a fundraiser for local artists. I'd offered to go, but she waved me off with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's just boring schmoozing, Dan. You'd hate it." So I stayed home, helped Ethan with his algebra homework, and tucked Lily into bed with a story about dragons. Around 10 p.m., I texted Claire to check in. No reply. By midnight, worry had settled into my gut like a stone. I called and it went straight to voicemail. When she finally walked through the door at 1:37 a.m., her hair was slightly mussed, her lipstick smudged at the corner. She smelled faintly of cedarwood and something unfamiliar, not her usual jasmine perfume. "Event ran late," she said, kicking off her heels and heading straight for the stairs. "I'm exhausted. Don't wait up." Her voice was too bright, like a light bulb flickering before it burns out. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, trying to convince myself it was nothing. People lose track of time. Fundraisers run late. Phones die. But the engineer in me knows that when the numbers don't add up, something's wrong with the equation. Over the next few weeks, the signs multiplied like stress fractures in concrete. Claire started dressing differently, sharper, bolder, with heels she hadn't worn since our early dating days. She'd leave the house with a hurried kiss on my cheek, her perfume trailing behind her like a ghost. Her phone buzzed constantly, and she'd smile at the screen in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. I tried to talk to her to bridge the gap. Over dinner one night, I asked about her work, about the gallery, about anything that might pull her back to me. She answered in clipped sentences, her fork pushing roasted potatoes around her plate. "It's just busy, Dan," she said, eyes on her food. "You know how it is. Deadlines, clients, the usual." But it wasn't the usual. I'd always been good at reading her, at knowing when her silences meant she was stressed, or when her laughter meant she was truly happy. This was different. This was a wall, and I was on the wrong side of it. I started paying attention, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stop. I noticed the new earrings she wore, gold hoops with a delicate twist, nothing like the simple studs she usually favored. I found a receipt in her purse for a coffee shop we never went to, dated for a Tuesday afternoon when she told me she was at the gallery. I checked our bank statements, discreetly, shamefully, and found charges for lunches at upscale restaurants, places we'd never been together. Each discovery was a pinprick, small but cumulative, eroding the foundation of trust we'd built over a decade and a half. I didn't want to believe it. Claire was my partner, my confidant, the woman who'd cried with me when we lost our first pregnancy, who'd danced with me in our living room to old jazz records when the kids were asleep. But doubt is a slow poison, and it was seeping into every corner of my mind. I needed proof, not just suspicions. I needed to see the crack in the structure for myself. One Thursday in October, Claire said she had to fly to Seattle for a weekend art fair. It's a big deal, she told me, packing a suitcase with more care than usual. Collectors from all over. I'll be back Sunday night. I nodded, kissed her goodbye, and watched her drive away. But something in her voice, the way it caught slightly, like she was reciting lines, made me act. I called her assistant, Mia, under the pretense of confirming Claire's travel plans for a surprise delivery of flowers. Mia hesitated, then said, "Oh, there's no art fair in Seattle this weekend." Claire took a personal day. The world tilted. I thanked Mia, hung up, and sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the suitcase Claire hadn't taken, the one she used for real business trips. My hands shook as I opened her laptop, left on the nightstand. She'd always been careless with passwords, and I knew hers from years of shared accounts. I logged into her email and found a confirmation for a boutique hotel in Seattle, booked for 2 nights. The reservation was under her name, but the second guest field was blank. My stomach churned. I could have stopped there. I could have confronted her when she got home, demanded answers. But I needed to know everything, every detail of the betrayal, every flaw in the design of our life. I downloaded a tracking app onto my phone and linked it to hers, something I'd never imagined doing. Felt like a violation, but so did her lies. The app showed her phone moving north, toward Seattle, just as she'd said. But it wasn't at the convention center where the art fair would have been. It was at the hotel, a sleek, modern place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a rooftop bar. I spent that weekend in a haze, shuttling the kids to their activities while my mind raced. Ethan asked why I was so quiet, and I lied, saying I was just tired. Lily drew me a picture of a house with a bright yellow sun above it, and I nearly broke down right there. On Saturday night, I checked the app again. Claire's phone was still at the hotel. I called her, and she picked up on the 3rd ring, her voice breathless. "Hey, Han," she said, "just grabbing a quick drink with some collectors. It's been nonstop." In the background, I heard a man's voice, low and warm, followed by Claire's muffled laugh. "Gotta go," she said. "Love you." She hung up before I could respond. "Love you." The words felt like a mockery, a blueprint for a building that no longer stood. By Sunday, I had a name. It wasn't hard to find, not with the tools at my disposal. I cross-referenced the hotel's social media, looking for check-ins or tagged photos from the weekend. A post from the rooftop bar showed a group of people, and there, in the background, was Claire. She was leaning close to a man, her hand on his arm, her smile brighter than I'd seen in months. His face was partially turned, but I recognized him. Marcus Tate, a photographer whose work had been featured at her gallery. He was tall, with sharp cheekbones and a reputation for charming everyone he met. I'd met him once at a gallery opening. He'd shaken my hand, complimented our home, and I'd thought nothing of it. Now his face was burned into my mind. I dug deeper, scouring Marcus's public profiles. His ex-account was full of artsy photos, cityscapes, blurred lights, and, in one post from a month ago, a shot of Claire's hand holding a glass of wine, captioned, "Moments that linger." The post had a handful of likes, including one from Claire's private account. My heart pounded as I clicked through her ex activity, something I'd never done before. She'd been careful, but not careful enough. There were messages, not overtly incriminating, but suggestive enough. "Can't wait to see you again." That night was unforgettable. Each word was a hammer, shattering the illusion of our life. When Claire came home Sunday night, she was all smiles, dropping her suitcase by the door and hugging the kids like nothing had changed. She kissed me on the cheek, told me she'd missed me, and started unpacking as if everything was normal. I watched her, my face a mask, while inside, the structure of our marriage was collapsing. I didn't confront her, not yet. I needed time to process, to plan. I'm an engineer. I don't act on impulse. I calculate, I measure, I design. But as I lay awake that night, Claire sleeping soundly beside me, I knew one thing for certain. She'd betrayed me, not just with her body but with her heart. And I wasn't going to let it go unanswered. I'd spent my life building things to last. Bridges, buildings, a family. If Claire thought she could tear that down without consequences, she was about to learn how wrong she was. Revenge, I decided, would be precise, deliberate, and devastating. Not a wrecking ball, but a controlled demolition, designed to leave her with nothing but the rubble of her choices. The days after Claire's return from Seattle were a study in restraint. I moved through our life like a ghost, performing the motions of husband and father while my mind worked overtime, drafting a plan as meticulous as any bridge I'd ever designed. Claire seemed oblivious, her smiles as polished as ever, her lies woven seamlessly into our routine. She'd kiss me goodbye in the mornings, her lips cool against my cheek, and I'd nod, my jaw tight, knowing she was likely texting Marcus Tate before she even reached the gallery. The betrayal wasn't just a wound. It was a fire, slow burning, fueling every decision I made. I didn't want to scream or throw her out. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to see the structure of her life collapse under its own flaws. And I wanted Marcus to pay, too, for thinking he could slip into my world and take what was mine. I'm not a vengeful man by nature. I've always believed in fixing problems, not breaking things. But Claire had broken something fundamental, and the engineer in me saw only one solution. A controlled demolition, precise and irreversible. I needed evidence, leverage, and a strategy that would hit them both where it hurt most. Not their bodies, but their pride, their reputations, their futures. I spent weeks gathering data, treating the task like a project with deadlines and deliverables. Every step was calculated, every risk assessed. First, I needed proof beyond what I'd already found. The tracking app on Claire's phone gave me her movements, but I wanted more, details that would leave no room for denial. I started by accessing her cloud account, where she backed up her photos and messages. It was easier than I expected. Her password was still the same one she'd used for years, a combination of our kids' birthdays. The familiarity of it stung, but I pushed it aside and dove in. There were photos, hundreds of them. Some were innocent. Ethan at his soccer game, Lily's school play, our family at the beach last summer. But others weren't. Hidden in a folder labeled Work, I found snapshots of Claire and Marcus. One showed them at a bar, her head tilted against his shoulder, his hand resting on her thigh. Another was taken in what looked like a hotel room, Claire in a silk robe, laughing as Marcus held a glass of champagne. The timestamps matched her business trips over the past 6 months. The messages were worse. They were too explicit, but they didn't need to be. "I can't stop thinking about last night," Marcus wrote in one. "You make everything else disappear," Claire replied. There were plans for meetups, coded references to gallery events that never existed, and a string of heart emojis that made my stomach turn. I saved everything, screenshots, downloads, even the metadata showing dates and locations. I backed it up on an encrypted drive, stored in my office safe. Evidence was my foundation, and I was building it brick by brick. Next, I needed to know more about Marcus Tate. I already had his name and face, but I wanted his weaknesses, his pressure points. I started with his public profiles. Marcus was 38, never married, with a career built on moody black and white photography that sold for thousands at galleries like Claire's. His ex account painted him as a free spirit, posts about late-night shoots, craft cocktails, and cryptic quotes about living for the moment. But beneath the artsy veneer, I found cracks. He'd been sued twice by former clients for missed deadlines, and a quick search of public records showed a lien on his condo for unpaid taxes. Marcus lived beyond his means, banking on his charm and reputation to keep him afloat. That gave me an angle. His ego and his finances were vulnerable. I hired a private investigator, a discreet woman named Karen who specialized in domestic matters. I met her at a diner outside town, handing over a folder with Marcus's details and Claire's travel patterns. "I need everything," I told her. "Where they go, what they do, who they talk to. No confrontation, just facts." Karen nodded, her face unreadable. "You're calm about this," she said, sipping her coffee. I shrugged. "I don't build bridges by panicking." She didn't smile, but she took the job. Karen's reports came in over the next 3 weeks, each one a punch to the gut. Claire and Marcus were meeting regularly, not just in Seattle but closer to home. a motel off Highway 26, a wine bar in Beaverton. Once, brazenly, at Marcus's studio downtown, where they stayed for 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon while I was at Lily's piano recital. Karen included photos. Claire slipping into Marcus's car, their hands brushing as they walked, a kiss in a parking lot lit by sodium lights. Each image was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. But I didn't flinch. I filed them away, my anger sharpening into focus. With the evidence secured, I turned to the plan itself. I wanted revenge that would hurt them both, not just emotionally but socially and professionally. Claire's gallery job depended on her reputation as a cultured, trustworthy curator. Marcus's career hinged on his image as a charismatic artist. If I could expose their affair in a way that shattered those facades, they'd lose more than each other. They'd lose the lives they'd built. But it had to be public, undeniable, and impossible to spin into a sob story. I wasn't interested in a quiet divorce or a private settlement. I wanted them to face the consequences in front of everyone who mattered to them. The opportunity came in early December, when Claire's gallery announced its annual winter showcase. It was the event of the season, drawing collectors, critics, and Portland's cultural elite. Marcus's latest series, a collection of urban portraits, was the centerpiece, and Claire was curating the exhibit. She'd been talking about it for weeks, her excitement genuine, though I now knew it wasn't just about the art. The showcase was set for a Saturday night at the gallery, a sleek space with white walls and exposed beams, perfect for the kind of crowd that sipped Prosecco and whispered about genius. It was also the perfect stage for what I had in mind. I started by designing a digital presentation, something that would blend seamlessly into the evening's program. The gallery always opened its showcases with a slideshow, images of the featured artist's work, interspersed with quotes from critics and curators. I knew the gallery's AV system well. I'd helped Claire troubleshoot it years ago. I contacted the gallery's tech guy, posing as a vendor with an updated file for the showcase. He was overworked and didn't question it, giving me access to upload my version. My slideshow started innocently enough. Marcus's photos, glowing reviews, Claire's curated text about his vision. But halfway through, it would shift. I embedded the photos from Karen's reports, Claire and Marcus in their stolen moments, grainy but unmistakable. Between each image, I added text from their messages, blown up in bold font. "You make everything else disappear. Can't wait to see you again." The final slide was simple, curated by Claire Harper, with special thanks to Marcus Tate. I tested the file a dozen times, ensuring the timing was perfect. It would play automatically, looping until someone stopped it. I also created a backup plan, an anonymous email blast sent to every collector, critic, and gallery contact in Claire's address book, with the same photos and messages attached. I scheduled it to go out halfway through the showcase, in case the slideshow was interrupted. The email came from a burner account, untraceable, with a subject line that read, "The real art of the evening." But I wasn't done. Marcus's financial troubles gave me another lever. I tipped off a contact at the IRS about his unpaid taxes, attaching copies of the public records I'd found. It wouldn't hit immediately, but it would tighten the noose over time. I also reached out to a few of his past clients, anonymously, suggesting they check the authenticity of his prints. Rumors of fraud could do as much damage as facts in the art world. For Claire, the professional fallout would be enough, but I wanted her to feel it personally, too. I started laying the groundwork for our divorce, meeting with a lawyer named Greg who specialized in high-conflict cases. I showed him the evidence, and he nodded, impressed. "You've got her dead to rights," he said. "We can push for full custody," citing her neglect and deception. "The courts don't look kindly on this kind of behavior." I didn't want to take the kids from Claire entirely. They loved her, and I wasn't that cruel, but I wanted her to know it was a possibility, a sword hanging over her head. As the showcase approached, I kept up appearances at home. I cooked dinners, helped with homework, even sat through a rom-com with Claire one night, her feet in my lap like old times. She seemed relaxed, maybe even guilty, her touches lingering a little longer than usual. I wondered if she sensed the storm coming, but her eyes gave nothing away. She was too deep in her lie, too confident in her double life. That made it easier, in a way. She'd built her own trap, and I was just springing it. The night before the showcase, I lay awake, running through the plan one last time. The slideshow was uploaded. The email was scheduled. The lawyer was on standby. I'd arranged for the kids to stay with my parents, claiming I wanted a date night with Claire at the gallery. Everything was in place, every beam and bolt accounted for. I felt no joy, no satisfaction, just a cold, steady resolve. Claire had chosen to dismantle our life, and now she'd face the consequences. Marcus, too, would learn what it cost to cross a man who builds things for a living. Tomorrow, the gallery would light up with more than art. It would be the night Claire and Marcus saw their world crack open, exposed to everyone they tried to impress. And I'd be there watching, not as a husband but as an engineer, ensuring every piece fell exactly where I'd planned. The night of the winter showcase arrived, crisp and clear, with Portland's skyline glittering against a velvet sky. I stood in our bedroom, adjusting my tie in the mirror, the weight of the evening settling into my bones. Claire was already at the gallery, overseeing last-minute preparations, her texts to me brief but cheerful. "It's going to be amazing. See you at 7. I didn't reply. My silence wasn't anger, it was focus. Tonight, the structure of her deception would come crashing down, and I'd be there to watch every moment of it. I'd spent weeks designing this, not as a reckless act of rage but as a precise demolition, every detail engineered to expose Claire and Marcus without leaving them room to hide. This wasn't about pain for pain's sake. It was about justice, about making them carry the weight of their betrayal in front of the world they valued more than me. I drove to the gallery alone, the kids safely at my parents' house with a cover story about a special date night. The streets were alive with holiday lights, families bustling toward restaurants and theaters, but I felt detached, like I was moving through a blueprint of someone else's life. The gallery was in a converted warehouse, its glass facade glowing with warm light. Inside, the space hummed with the chatter of Portland's art elite. Collectors in tailored suits, critics with sharp eyes, artists clutching wine glasses. I stepped through the doors at exactly 7:15 p.m., my face a practiced mask of calm. Claire spotted me from across the room, her auburn hair swept up, her black dress hugging her curves. She waved, her smile bright but fleeting, and I nodded back, my expression neutral. Marcus was there too, holding court near a display of his photographs, his laugh carrying over the crowd. I avoided his gaze, my hands steady in my pockets. The showcase began with the usual pomp. Claire's boss, a wiry man named Victor, gave a speech about the gallery's commitment to visionary art. Claire followed, her voice confident as she introduced Marcus's series, describing his work as raw, intimate, a mirror to the human soul. The irony wasn't lost on me. The crowd applauded, and the lights dimmed for the slideshow. I took a sip of my wine, my pulse steady, and positioned myself near the back, where I could see both the screen and the room. The slideshow started as expected. Marcus's photos, moody cityscapes, faces caught in fleeting moments, flashed across the screen, paired with glowing quotes from critics. Claire stood near the front, her hands clasped, a proud curator basking in the moment. Marcus leaned against a wall, smirking, his eyes darting to her now and then. The crowd murmured approval, nodding at each image. I waited, counting the seconds. At the 5-minute mark, the tone shifted. A photo appeared, not one of Marcus's staged portraits, but a grainy shot from Karen's reports. Claire and Marcus in a parking lot, their lips locked, her hand on his chest. A gasp rippled through the room. Claire froze, her face paling as she turned toward the screen. The next slide was worse. Claire in that silk robe, laughing in a hotel room, Marcus's arm around her waist. The text of their messages appeared in bold white letters. "You make everything else disappear." Another slide, another photo. Claire slipping into Marcus's car, their hands intertwined. "Can't wait to see you again." The crowd's murmurs turned to whispers, then to stunned silence. Claire's eyes darted to the AV booth, where the tech guy was frantically clicking at his laptop, but I'd locked the system with a password he wouldn't guess. The slideshow looped, each image a hammer blow, and the email blast-eyed scheduled hit inboxes at that exact moment, pinging phones across the room. Collectors glanced at their screens, their faces tightening. Critics exchanged looks. Victor's mouth hung open, his wine glass forgotten in his hand. Claire moved first, pushing through the crowd toward the booth, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "Turn it off!" she hissed, her voice breaking. Marcus followed, his charm replaced by panic, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for an escape. But there was no escape. The photos kept coming. Claire laughing at a bar, Marcus's hand on her thigh, their silhouettes in a motel window. The final slide flashed, curated by Claire Harper, with special thanks to Marcus Tate. A bitter laugh escaped someone in the crowd, and the room erupted into chaos. Whispers turning to open gossip, phones buzzing with forwarded emails. I stayed still, watching. Claire reached the booth, shoving past the tech guy, but the slideshow looped again. She turned, her eyes finding mine across the room. For a moment, time stopped. Her face was a mix of shock, shame, and something like fear. I held her gaze, my expression blank, giving her nothing. Marcus was at her side now, muttering something, but she shook him off, her hands trembling. Victor pushed through the crowd, his face red, demanding answers she couldn't give. The gallery's reputation, her reputation, was crumbling in real time, and I felt no pity, only the cold satisfaction of a plan executed perfectly. I slipped out before the chaos peaked, driving home in silence. My phone buzzed with texts from Claire. "Dan, please, we need to talk," and "I'm so sorry, it's not what it looks like." But I ignored them. The structure was down. Now came the aftermath. By morning, the art world was abuzz. Posts from attendees spread the story, some with screenshots of the slideshow, others speculating about Claire's career and Marcus's credibility. Portland's art scene just imploded. One post read, with hundreds of likes. Another, from a critic, "Marcus Tate's work is as fake as his morals." The IRS tip I'd sent was already in motion, and I learned later that Marcus's condo was under review for seizure. Claire's gallery issued a statement distancing itself from her. And by noon, Victor had suspended her pending an investigation into professional conduct. When Claire came home that afternoon, she looked like a stranger. Her makeup smudged, her hair falling loose, her eyes red from crying. She found me in the kitchen where I was making coffee, the kids still at my parents'. "Dan," she started, her voice shaking. "I don't know what to say. I messed up. I never meant." "Don't." I cut her off, my voice low but firm. "You don't get to explain this away. I know everything. Seattle, the motel, the messages. You chose this." She flinched, wrapping her arms around herself. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. Marcus was... he was a mistake. I love you, Dan. I love our family." "You loved yourself more," I said, setting my mug down. "You loved the thrill, the attention, the lie. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed Ethan and Lily. You built a life with him behind my back, and now you're paying for it." She sank into a chair, sobbing. "What do you want me to do? I'll quit the gallery. I'll cut him off, anything. Please, don't take the kids." I leaned forward, my voice steady. "I'm not taking them yet, but I could. I have evidence, Claire, photos, messages, receipts. My lawyer's ready to bury you in court. You'll get to see the kids, but on my terms. You don't get to dictate anything anymore." She stared at me, her face crumpling. "You did this? The slideshow, the emails." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She knew. The weeks that followed were a slow unraveling. Claire moved into the guest room, her presence in the house a shadow. I filed for divorce, pushing for primary custody. Greg, my lawyer, was confident. The evidence was ironclad, and Claire's public humiliation weakened her position. The kids were confused, asking why Mom was sad, why she wasn't sleeping in our room. I told them the truth in pieces, careful not to poison their love for her, but enough to protect them from her lies. Ethan, at 14, understood more than I wanted him to. Lily, at 9, just clung to me, her drawings now showing gray clouds instead of yellow suns. Marcus's career tanked. The IRS audit hit, and rumors of fraud spread, drying up his commissions. His condo was sold at auction, and he moved to a cheap apartment across town. I didn't track him further. He was collateral damage, a footnote in my plan. Claire's gallery fired her, and she took a job at a small art supply store, a far cry from her curated world. Our social circle, once warm and tight, turned cold. Friends stopped inviting her to dinners, and the kids' school parents whispered when she picked them up. She was a pariah, her charm useless against the truth. I rebuilt, slowly. Work kept me grounded, designing bridges, solving problems with math and steel. The kids adjusted, their resilience a small miracle. I didn't gloat or revel in Claire's fall. It wasn't about joy. It was about balance, about ensuring the consequences matched the crime. She thought she could have it all, me, the kids, Marcus, her glittering career. I showed her she couldn't. One night, months later, I sat on the porch swing, the house quiet. Claire had moved out, renting a small apartment nearby. The divorce was nearly final, the custody agreement favoring me. I looked at the stars, feeling not triumph but clarity. I'd built a life once, and I'd build another. For me, for Ethan, for Lily. Claire and Marcus had their rubble to live with. I had my blueprints, and I was already laying the foundation for something stronger.